Hello and welcome back to 64 Squares Official, where we bring you the most interesting games from the world of chess. Today we are looking at a fascinating encounter from the first round of the 2026 Field Cup in St. Louis, a battle between one of the world's elite grandmasters, Fabiano Caruana, and the dangerous Dutch grandmaster, Jordan van Forest. Caruana came into this game rated 2792, while Jordan was rated 2728. Caruana was the highest rated player, but Jordan is certainly capable of causing problems for anyone. And what makes this game particularly interesting is that it begins as a quiet Italian game, but slowly transforms into a very unpleasant strategic squeeze for black before Caruana eventually finishes the job with his queen and knight. So let's get into the game. e4 and e5. Caruana starts with the king pawn. Jordan responds in classical fashion. Knight to f3 and knight to c6. Bishop to c4 and knight to f6. Both sides develop naturally, heading into one of the oldest and most respected openings in chess. Now d3. Caruana chooses a quieter setup. This is the Gioco Pianissimo, literally the very quiet game, but don't let the name fool you. These positions can become extremely complicated once both sides start maneuvering. A bishop to c5, c3. Caruana prepares the important central break, d4. Now both sides goes for kingside castling and d5, and Jordan immediately strikes in the center. This is exactly what black should be looking for. Rather than allowing white to build a completely free position, black challenges the center right away. Now he takes d5 and knight takes d5. The central tension is resolved, and black's knight recaptures. The position remains roughly balanced. Now rook to e1. Caruana puts his rook on the open e file and increases the pressure towards the center. Now bishop to g4, knight b to d2 and knight to b6. Black's bishop pins the knight while the knight retreats from d5. h3. Caruana asks the bishop where it wants to go. Bishop to h5, the bishop maintains its position on the h5 square. Now bishop to b3, the bishop retreats but remains active. And now Jordan comes up with an interesting idea. Queen takes d3. Black grabs a pawn on d3. This is a brave decision. Jordan's queen ventures deep into white's position, and black believes that the queen can escape safely. Now knight takes e5, and Caruana immediately responds by taking the pawn on e5. White is not interested in simply trying to win his pawn back. He wants activity. Now queen to f5, knight e to f3. The knight comes back and white begins consolidating. Rook a to d8 and queen to e2 and queen to c8. Black's queen has already moved several times. Meanwhile, Caruana's pieces are beginning to find natural squares. Now queen to f1, a quiet but useful queen retreat. Caruana is preparing to coordinate his pieces and increase the pressure. Now bishop to g6, knight to e4 and bishop goes e7, bishop to f4. And now white's position is becoming increasingly harmonious. The bishop comes to f4. The knight is centralized and the rook on e1 is already active. Rook f to e8. Black places another rook on the e file. Now both players are fighting for control of the same file. Rook to e2. A very interesting maneuver from Caruana. Instead of exchanging rooks or leaving the rook where it is, he brings it to e2. The idea becomes clear very soon. Now bishop to f8. This is a slightly passive decision from Jordan, and suddenly Caruana's advantage begins to grow. Rook a to e1, there it is. Caruana doubles his rook on the e file. This is exactly the kind of position Caruana loves. No immediate fireworks, but every piece is gradually becoming more active. Knight to a5, bishop to c2. Caruana calmly retreats the bishop while maintaining its influence. Knight a to c4. The knight jumps towards c4. Black is trying to create counterplay, but white's pieces are coordinating extremely well. And now Caruana finds an excellent maneuver. Knight to h4. The knight heads toward the king side and attacks the bishop on g6. This is very important moment. Caruana is not rushing. He is simply asking black's pieces difficult questions. Now bishop takes e4. Jordan decides to eliminate the powerful knight. And bishop takes e4. But Caruana recaptures with the bishop. And now white has a very active bishop on e4. Now knight to d6. Black's remaining knight retreats. Now bishop takes d6. Caruana exchanges another important piece. Now bishop takes d6. Black recaptures, but strategically Caruana has achieved something important. His remaining pieces are more active and black's position is becoming increasingly passive. Now bishop takes b7 and Caruana grabs another pawn. This is excellent practical chess. He does not need to force anything. He simply takes material while keeping his position under control. Now queen to d7, knight to f3. The knight retreats to a useful square. Now rook takes e2. Jordan finally removes the active rook. Now queen takes e2. Caruana recaptures, and now white has an extra pawn and a very comfortable position. Now c6 and bishop to a6. The bishop finds another excellent square on a6. Now g6. Black gives the king some additional breathing room. Now queen to e4. Caruana centralizes the queen. The pressure is building, and now comes the first clear inaccuracy. Knight to d5. The suggested move here was c5. Black needed counterplay. Instead, Jordan chooses knight to d5, and Caruana's advantage jumps significantly. And there is another huge factor here. Jordan is having less than 1 minute remaining on his clock. That is an enormous practical problem in a position this complicated. Bishop to c4. Caruana calmly improves the bishop. Queen to c7. King to f1. No panic. Caruana simply improves his king and removes potential tactical problems. Now bishop to c5. g3. Another useful move. The king gets additional protection and white maintains complete control. Now a5. Black tries to create some counterplay on the queen side. Rook to e2. The rook returns to e2. Caruana is completely in control now. Rook to d6. Black attempts to activate the rook, but the position is already extremely difficult, and now Caruana begins forcing the king around. Queen to e8 check. Now king to g7. Queen e5 check. Another check. f6. Black has to weaken his king side in order to escape the checks. Now queen to e4. Caruana does not need to force anything. He simply keeps the queen in an excellent position. Now rook to d7, bishop to b3. The bishop returns to b3. Look at white's pieces now. The queen is active, the bishop is excellent, the rook is active, and black is simply trying to survive. Now rook to e7, queen to d3. Caruana keeps everything under control. Now rook takes e2 and queen takes e2. The final rook is exchanged. And that is exactly what Caruana wants. The position becomes simpler, but white's advantage remains. Now queen to d7, king to g2. Again Caruana improves his king. Now queen to e7 and queen to a6. The queen penetrates to a6. This is a very strong move. Caruana's queen and bishop are working together, and black's king is becoming increasingly vulnerable. Now queen to c7. Now bishop takes d5. Caruana gives up his bishop for the knight. C takes d5. And now we reach a critical position. White still has the advantage, but Caruana has to convert it accurately. Now a4, a useful move, creating another weakness on the queen side. And then Jordan makes the decisive mistake. King to f7. The engine strongly prefers h5. This seemingly innocent king move allows Caruana's queen to become extremely dangerous. The evaluation jumps dramatically, and now comes the punishment. Queen to a8. What an invasion. The queen lands on a8, and suddenly black's king is facing serious problems. Now king to e6 and b4. Caruana opens the queen side. Now a takes b4 and c takes b4. White gets another pawn moving forward. Now bishop takes b4. Black grabs a pawn, but this does not solve the real problem. The king remains exposed, and now Caruana's knight joins the attack. Knight to d4 check. The knight comes into the position with tempo. Now king to d7 and queen takes d5 with check. Caruana takes the pawn with check. This is now a queen and knight attack against the exposed king. Queen to d6. Black tries to defend, but Caruana keeps the initiative. Queen to b7 check. Another check. Now king goes e8. Queen to c8 check. The queen continues the chase. Now king to f7. Queen to c4 check. And another check. The black king simply cannot find a safe home. Now king goes f8. Knight to e6 check. A beautiful move. The knight joins the queen once again. This is a textbook example of how a queen and knight can work together against a vulnerable king. Now king to e7. Knight to f4. And now Caruana does not need to keep checking. He simply improves the knight and maintains total control. Bishop to d2. Black tries to find some activity, but it's far too late. Knight to d5 check. Another check. Now king to d8. The king is forced back. Queen to b5. Caruana calmly centralizes his queen. There is no need to rush. Now queen to e6. Black tries one final defensive idea, but Caruana has everything under control. Now queen to d3. And it was in this position Jordan resigned the game. What a performance by Fabiano Caruana. There was no single spectacular combination that decided this game. Instead, Caruana demonstrated what makes him such a formidable elite grandmaster: piece coordination, patience, precision, and relentless pressure. The turning points were particularly important. First, it was knight to d5, which allowed white's advantage to grow, but the decisive mistake was king to f7 on move 42, and h5 would have offered much better resistance. And after queen to a8, Caruana's queen invaded, and the black king was exposed to a devastating series of checks. And the final combination of queen and knight was simply beautiful. Knight to d4 check, queen takes d5 check, queen to b7 check, and queen to c8 check, queen to c4 check, knight to e6 check, and knight to d5 check. A brilliant technical conversion from Caruana. So in the first round of the Sinquefield Cup 2026, Fabiano Caruana scores a convincing victory over Jordan Van Forest. It started as a quiet Italian game, but by the end, it was anything but quiet. If you enjoyed this game and this analysis, make sure to like the video, subscribe to 64 Squares Official, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss more exciting games and deep chess analysis. And as always, keep enjoying the beautiful game of chess. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next game.